Welcome to Let's Talk About, a series spotlighting leaders, authors, artists, marketers, creators, entrepreneurs, sharing tips and expert advice on business, media, technology, and frankly, life itself. I'm your host, Cynthia Nelson, three-time entrepreneur, Forbes contributor, investor, and advisor. Today, we're talking to Jeff Greenfield, co-founder and CEO of Provalytics. I almost screwed it up, but I didn't quite, I don't think. Welcome.
Thank you, Cynthia. No, you did great. That is a tough one for people to say. When I explain it to folks that prova is actually an Italian word that means proof, then people are like, "Oh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand it."
Okay, I now I understand it too. Thank you for clarifying. You know, you've probably taken a long, twisty road to get where you're at. So I always like to talk about where you started. How did you get into doing what you're doing?
Well, it was definitely a very twisty road. It was not by design. It was more so by accident in terms of kind of how I got here. So this company focuses in on marketing measurement, solving that kind of that old problem of half the money I spend in marketing is wasted. The only problem is I don't know which half.
Exactly.
Yeah, and prior to this, I actually had another company that I started in 2008 that did the same thing called C3 Metrics that I exited from in 2019. So I'm kind of back into the same space. So I've been in this space now for, gosh, since, 2007, really, when you start to think about it. But in terms of how I got there, it was more by accident. I was actually buying media for a client, and we faced this issue where for every sale, we had five or six vendors claiming credit. Like it was like they were like saying, "Hey, that's my child." It's like everyone's claiming that's my child. And so we had this duplication issue where, in fact, our client was paying out five times more than they should have because everything was on a like an affiliate CPA type
Right,
basis.
right.
So that led down the path of trying to find a solution and led to the development of my first solution for this. But I didn't get into marketing. I started my business career actually as a magician, interestingly enough. Yeah.
Now you
And
work magic with analytics. I love
yeah,
it.
exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I went from magic to chiropractor. So I did magic with my hands
Yeah,
still.
yeah.
And then I got injured and couldn't take care of patients anymore. And it was right around the time, the mid 90s, the birth of the internet,
Hmm.
and ended up finding my way to technology and to the internet, and to the entertainment side of things. And then through a whole series of events, I ended up here. But I kind of see if I step back, because it is not linear, the way I look at it is, magic is kind of a great stress reduction tool for most
Hmm.
people. It teaches you to think outside the box, to think differently. Chiropractic, it's designed to reduce stress on your nervous system. And kind of what I do today is that marketers are not really good at math. They're not supposed to be.
Yeah,
The,
yeah,
your friends in high school that are good at math, they're CPAs now,
yeah.
but things have gotten so complicated with all of the different aspects of digital marketing that most marketers have to be good at math. And so our platform does the math for marketers. And so I'm still in the stress reduction business, but now it's for marketers.
That's amazing. I
Yeah,
love that story. The magic just continues.
that's exactly right. 1,000%.
You've been dubbed the cookie monster. And cookie meaning, cookies for understanding cookies and advertising, obviously, and what happens with the cookie apocalypse. But what does it mean for marketers, and what myths are you trying to kind of bust?
Well, what it really means for marketers is that the fundamental workings of how the advertising ecosystem is set up, which essentially is that concept of the free internet, has drastically changed just over the last couple of years. And it really started with COVID as more and more people shopped online, spent more
Hmm.
time online. Privacy became this really important thing. Now, these privacy things were already underway, but they really took a hold then. And probably the first big thing that happened is that big iOS update. Any of us that have iPhones, we remember
Yep.
it. because after the update, we went to log on to Facebook or Instagram and it said,
Right.
"Do you want this app to track you?" And
Right. We're
everyone said no.
like what?
Yeah, exactly. And what that meant is that all of a sudden these apps were blind. So that was the first kind of foundational stone to crack in terms of tracking. The
Mhm.
other big thing is that it used to be that the internet was all open, this
Right.
concept of the
Right.
open web, and that from an advertising standpoint of view, you could track users across all of the different websites because that's all there was. Now we're in this world of apps and what we call walled gardens. And what I mean is, from a marketer's perspective, is that if I want to advertise on Meta, I can go to Meta and say, "Hey, I want to have a better understanding." And they'll say, "Well, give us all your data and we'll help you dig in real deep." And then you're like, "Okay, well, these same people I want to target over at Amazon, can I take this data with me?" And the answer is no.
No.
So the portability is no longer there. So now most of the traffic, most of the places that people are spending their times, places like Meta, Amazon, Walmart, Snap, all TikTok, all of these places are all their own environment where data can go in, but you cannot get it out. So you can't kind of move around. So you're kind of blinded, if you will, from a marketer's perspective, and now everybody's operating in a silo,
Mhm.
which is really bad. And then we also now have this kind of emergence, if you will, of no-click digital channels.
Mhm.
Now, everything about digital, the rise of digital advertising has all been because of clicks, because people got excited because they could finally count something and show that they purchased something.
Right.
And now we've got TV is being digitized. So we
Yeah.
have connected television, but there's nothing to click on.
Mhm.
We have a digital out of home, nothing to click on there. And we're on a podcast right now, and there's podcast advertising, which is one of the fastest growing areas. Again, nothing to click on. And so as a result, we have this emergence of ads that you can't click. We have all of these kind of walled environments, if you will, where
Mhm.
you can't
Mhm.
get data out of, and all these privacy regulations. And what that means is, as an advertiser, is you are completely siloed and kind of stuck, very difficult environment in order to kind of grow your marketing and to understand what's working and what's not working. So we're still in that John Wanamaker situation, as half the money is wasted. In fact, now from when we evaluate clients in the beginning, it's not half, it's more like 80% of the dollars are they should just throw it out the window because there's no difference.
It's crazy. I mean, you're leading this company, I understand the walled garden situation, oh so well. And every time they change the algorithm, you're screwed
Yep.
because they just changed it again. Give us more money. We'll maybe get you to the right people. You're leading Provalytics. It's a very AI-driven cookieless distribution model, an attribution model, I should say. Um, what inspired you to build it? I mean, obviously this crazy change that's there, but how is it actually changing like upper funnel measurement and CTV?
Great question. The inspiration behind this was the fact that we saw most marketers were blinded to what was going on. And most of them, are data-driven marketers, meaning they
Yeah,
follow the
yeah,
numbers.
yeah.
But the numbers they were following, like Google Analytics 4 or
Right.
Adobe,
Yeah,
were leading them to actually invest more dollars on lower funnel. And that violates one of the rules of marketing.
right.
The number one rule of marketing is to increase your reach,
Yeah,
increase the number of eyeballs. And
right.
down at the bottom, that wasn't happening. So what we did is that we theorized when we started building this out, and this is true about anything, that the way to move forward in the future is to borrow from the past. I mean, that's the reality.
Yeah.
And before digital advertising, none of the advertising was addressable. Things like
Hmm.
TV and radio, and yet
Hmm.
brands like BMW, all these retail outlets, they were able to advertise and drive customers in. And they did it by utilizing a statistical technique called marketing mix modeling. And
Hmm.
we knew that that worked. We also knew that it's based on contribution, which is incrementality. So
Hmm.
it was only measuring the incremental impact of dollars.
Hmm.
And so we said, okay, let's use this technique as the basis, which is from the past, but there were problems with it.
Mhm.
It didn't satisfy the need of today's digital marketer because it didn't go down to a level of detail. It wasn't tactical. We needed tactical information.
Yeah,
We also needed to be able to update it more frequently.
right.
Um, and those were kind of the big things. And so we updated it. We kind of merged it with the world of what we would call multi-touch attribution, which is what
Mhm.
today's marketer wanted. And then we used older school techniques. We actually used a technique called Bayesian, which was created in the 1700s by a preacher, if you can believe it.
Interesting.
And we use a technique from the University of Chicago in the early 60s. So these are old mathematical techniques that have been updated by using the super fast computers of today that allow us to essentially pan the camera back, see the big picture, and be able to tell what's actually driving awareness. And so our belief and understanding of how marketing works is that we invest dollars to buy eyeballs,
Yeah.
which build awareness. And when awareness is built enough, people will walk into your store. And if your store is online, that's translated into clicks, and then that leads to sales. So using these techniques, it allows us to, number one, look at the impact of CTV on everything from paid search to other digital advertising. But more importantly, we can also measure the halo effect. So what I mean
Hmm.
is when you're advertising CTV and you're telling people, go visit our website at xyz.com, guess what? People are trained in the US, the first place they're going to go search for your product is Amazon.
Yeah,
We're actually able to measure the impact of your CTV and all of your media and the halo that it's driving to Amazon. But we've also been able to demonstrate a bi-directional halo. So when you advertise on Amazon, some people will see the ads, they'll go to the page and they'll say,
mm.
I wonder if they have a website, if there's a better deal there. And they go to the website and they'll buy from there. So it's interesting. There's a lot of changes that are going on in shopping patterns, especially in the US right now. And marketers need to be aware that the ads that they buy and tell people to go to one place, they build awareness, but the consumer is going to decide where they're going to buy these days. And you
Right,
need to be able to measure that impact so you know where to spend more and where to spend less so you can
right.
get better return on marketing investment.
I mean, you've helped a lot of really big companies. I'm just going to name a couple, Nestle, Hertz, JP Morgan, navigate this really complex attribution that's out there. What's one lesson about measuring marketing performance that every growth stage company should learn early?
The biggest lesson, and I kind of say this is like a DIY technique, something that every marketer should do, is that
Yeah,
every marketer has a Google sheet on their desktop that has a list of, like every day for the last 12 or 24 months that they're tracking their performance by.
yep,
And they've got it on a cost per click basis, cost
yep,
per sale, cost per lead, whatever. And that's based upon their fundamental understanding of how the internet works, which is the fundamental understanding of most marketers is I invest dollars to buy clicks, clicks lead to sales.
right.
And what they're missing is that awareness piece.
Yeah,
Because if you optimize based upon the click, it's going to draw your dollars further down the funnel and you'll be decreasing your risk substantially. And so, what we suggest is you take that Google sheet, go back to the platforms where you pulled out the data,
right,
and when you pull the report, include the one column that you omitted, which is called impressions. Impressions is the equivalent of those eyeballs. It's the best metric we have for driving awareness.
right,
And it's ultimately what you buy. What you're buying are those impressions. And if you put that together for a year by day, and then you create a graph for it, you're going to notice it's different every day and then overlay your clicks. And you're going to notice days when the impressions are high doesn't mean clicks will be high because there's a
right,
delay between awareness
right.
and some sort of
Purchase
action.
action. Yeah,
And you want to find where it's correlated, understand the delay, and then go back to that day and do what you were doing on that day. Do more of that. It's actually really simple. The stuff that worked, do more. The stuff that didn't work, do less. The problem is if you're only focused on clicks, you're being reactive. You're not being proactive as a marketer. So add in impressions. That's the big takeaway here. The advantage of impressions is it allows you to unify every piece of digital marketing, every piece of digital marketing, sorry, traditional marketing. You
Hmm.
could even bring in your PR,
Right,
your
everything.
organic
Yeah.
social,
Yeah.
everything can come together, which is amazing.
That's really amazing. I mean, I get that. Yeah, and do less of what's not working. I'm sorry. It just seems so obvious, but marketers don't always think about it, right? And not that way and not complex and bringing it all together and seeing again, panning back and seeing the full picture. AI is like EIEIO, right? AIAIO. Like it's just on everybody tip of everybody's tongue. So what excites you the most about AI in marketing attribution?
Well, what excites me is the possibilities in terms of helping marketers tell the story. I don't think that AI is going to do a better job in terms of crunching through the numbers or get to a better answer. The key with marketing analytics is that, everything you're doing today is a model. And
Hmm.
models are mathematical. And, there's an old saying, all models are wrong, some are useful.
Yeah.
And the key with analytics is you want to be less wrong today than you were yesterday. This is
Right.
not about
Right.
perfection because in order to get to perfection, you have to build consensus, you have to get everybody together. But the way to build that consensus is to tell really good stories about what you're doing, what's working, what's not working, and what you're changing about that. And I think with AI, we can somehow automate the process of creating good visuals that tell a story because nothing tells a story better than like a meme.
Hmm.
Okay. Better
Hmm.
than any dashboard. You could send a meme around and everybody gets it automatically. Imagine having a meme that is telling a story about your marketing story in a meme over the last month. I think there's a capability
Interesting.
of being able to do that utilizing AI.
Hmm.
And I think that will help improve the conversations, especially at the C level, because the
Yeah.
most difficult conversations are between the head of marketing and the head of finance. They
Yep.
have to work together, but they both look at things from a
Very
different
different,
perspective.
very different glasses,
That's right. Totally.
very different angles. This has been so interesting. How do companies get a hold of you to really put what you've built into action? How do they find you?
Well, the best thing to do is to go to provalytics.com. You can go there, or you can just go to getprova. That's GETPROVA.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn and on our website. I'll just mention that, and you mentioned this earlier as well, Cynthia, that they keep changing the algorithm. And the reason they do that is the companies that control advertising are publicly traded. They
Yes.
face quarterly numbers.
Yes.
And I've been in this digital space since the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And what I've been saying since then is that if you have something that's working for you and you're on month 6, you are on borrowed time. And
Yeah.
so as a marketer, you have a responsibility to manage what you're doing now, but always be looking ahead, trying to see around the corner, which is very difficult. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the best way to see around the corner is to study the past because there's patterns. And so we've put together an attribution certification course. It's in our resources section on the website. It takes you about an hour and a half. There's a quiz afterwards. You pass it, you get a certificate for LinkedIn. There's no cost, but it gives you the past, the present, and what we see as the future of marketing measurement. But more importantly, it provides you a really good, strong foundation.
That's super. I love it. I'm going to definitely take that test. Provalytics. Jeff, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And I really reach out to him. This is some really good stuff cooking.
Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. It's been a pleasure.